Create that life, legacy designers. Amber Prosia here. Welcome to episode number 5 of the Parenting Biz Podcast, coming to you every single Monday. Now let's chat with this week's featured guest, Annette Densham. Annette, are you ready to enlighten us on your journey of how you strategize and seize the life you've always wanted for yourself and your family?
I'm ready to rock. Let's go, Amber.
Amazing. Annette Densham is a weaver of words, engaging storyteller, hoarder of knowledge, larkin, mom, wife, and lover of musicals. Now working closely with entrepreneurs and innovators on raising their profile by tapping into the power of PR and social media. Annette, please take a moment and fill in any gaps from the intro and give us a little glimpse of your own personal life.
Sure. Well, let's start with why I do what I do. I was 10 and I went, I'm going to be a journalist. So everything I did was based around that. So I was a bit of a geeky kid. I used to make my grandmother take me to the library in school holidays so I could do projects and write written reports on topics that took my fancy. So, yeah, yeah.
I think it's great.
My children aren't like that at all. And from a personal side, I'm married. I've been married for 20 years this year. I've got 2 boys. I've got a very tall one who's 17, Zaid, and I've got one that's almost as tall as me, Quinn, who's almost 14. And, I've pretty much worked around them for all of their lives, I took 10 years off corporate to stay home until Quinn was ready to start school when he went to prep. And I went back to work for 5 years in a corporate space until they decided they didn't want me anymore. And I went, well, what am I going to do? So I started this little business called Publicity Genie.
Amazing. I absolutely love it. And congratulations, 20 years. That's phenomenal. It's not many couples that last that long these days. So that's amazing.
Oh, well, look, we've had our moments, I can tell you.
That's part of it. It's all part of it, but still amazing you guys stuck together. So, Annette, thank you so much for having me on the show. Can you please just let our audience know, what does PR mean? What does it stand for? And what does it mean to you?
So PR, public relations. To me, PR is everything you say and everything you do in your business. So it's how you show up to networking events. It's how you present yourself on podcasts. It's how the information that you post on social media, including your personal accounts. It's your interactions with the media, sharing stories that they might find interesting, that they can do, TV interviews, radio interviews, or newspaper articles or magazine articles about. And it's the content that you create. Mm-hmm. So if you think of PR and replace it with perception and relationships, PR is all about creating that perception that you're everywhere, that you know what you're talking about, that you're really good at what you do. And the relationships is the relationships that you have with the media, because that's really important. They're a big part of a PR strategy. And the relationships that you have with your target audience, be it your current clients or on an ongoing basis, those ones that you're looking to, come over the line, come over to your side and work with you. So it's a long-term strategy. I get lots of people coming to me and they do 6 weeks and they get fed up because it's taking too long. It's not, and there's one thing that PR really isn't. It's not a magic bullet. You really have to combine it with other strategies and not put all your eggs in one basket, because, if you're just counting on that one thing to make or break you, then you tend to be very disappointed. So if you come into it knowing that, okay, like if you think of, we just talked about my relationship with my husband, 20 years we've been married, we've been together 23 years. We've had to work on that relationship, get to know each other, build trust, build respect. And it's no different in business. Mm-hmm. With your target audience, they've got to know, like, and trust you before they hand over their money. We all work really hard. And if you just pop up out of nowhere and after 6 weeks think that, everyone's going to go, oh my God, you're here, we've been waiting for you, it's not going to happen. You've got to drop those breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I love the little word transition from public relations to perception and relationships. We're definitely going to hit on it a little bit later on in the interview. I have a couple questions regarding that. So I love that you already dropped that in there. But that's a great analogy to even think of it that way, is the perception and relationships. I love that. Thanks so much, Annette. So, Annette, thank you so much for even being on our show today, first and foremost. We're so honored to have you here, and I know our listeners are going to be thrilled to hear everything that you're about to share. But just as you are aware, our listeners are parents or parents-to-be that realize ownership is key to not only to our parenting or business life, but in general. And along the parenting journey, we can lose sight of that. So however we focus on life as a game or an activity, not only can we learn to let go easier, but we can also gain strength from our mistakes and design our core focus to be one of laughter, joy, and most importantly, having fun, just like a 5-year-old kid in the sandbox. So this week, our entire interview will be captured around the board game Risk. Now, this board game is one of careful planning, quick decisions, and bold moves, just like our life. No matter which area of life you are focusing on, such as health, business, family, relationships, money, or anything in between, we may feel like we're either defending or attacking our enemies to protect our territory. So for those who aren't aware of the game, a quick high-level overview is the game board is a map of 6 continents divided into 42 territories. Each continent is a different color and exists of 4 to 12 territories. There are 6 complete sets of armies, each containing 3 types. 1 is infantry, 2 is cavalry, 3 is artillery. The object of the game is to conquer the world by occupying all territories on the board, which can clearly take some time, just like PR. It's not an overnight battle to be won. Therefore, you need to eliminate all of your opponents to win the game. On your turn, try to capture territories by defeating your opponent's armies. But be careful, you will have to place your forces wisely, attack at just the right time, and fortify your defenses against all enemies. Each turn consists of 3 steps, and we're going to craft our interview around these 3 steps. So round up your troops, get into position, and let the war begin. Or in the PR world, gather your content, choose your mode of communication, and step foot on the battlefield by unleashing the PR Genie within. So now, as you guys are all aware, this is just an analogy, and we can create and design our lives any way we want. Annette, this is your chosen board game, which I absolutely love. So let's get ourselves prepared for battle and begin placing our armies. Are you ready to get started?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's conquer the world.
Perfect. So as it was mentioned before, is each person gets 3, in one turn, there's 3 steps towards it. So the first step is getting and placing new armies. So say for the PR world, we're getting ready to launch ourselves out there. How the heck do we do it, Annette?
Oh my goodness, that is a big question. So how do we, like anything, you plan, you put aside some time to look at what you need to do and how you need to do it. And that means like what communication channels are the best for you. And that comes from understanding who your target audience is. And I find, and I've worked with a lot of people, and they come to me and they don't know who their target audience is because they think that they can help everyone. And maybe you can help everyone, but that doesn't help you in terms of promoting your business. It's like standing on top of a mountain and shouting ineffectually into the wind. No one is really going to hear you. You're not going to get cut through. So you have to understand who you're talking to, and then you can create some key messages. What is it that you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? What are people going to get out of working with you? So every single time you put out a piece of marketing content, be that PR, a media release, social media content, a blog, you are really clear in there on your messages. So when your target audience sees or hears what you're saying, they know that you get them, that you understand where they're coming from, that you've got a solution to their problem. And that leads me into the next one is, what problems do you solve? If you know what that is and you're really clear on what that is, it makes it really easy to create content around that. So to get started, map out what it's going to look like. And I don't mean like you don't have to do 12 months. Start with 90 days. Yeah. Each month, what is it that I need to be doing to expand my reach, to drop those breadcrumbs that I talked about. So as people pick them up, they're like going, oh, okay, I'm learning a little bit more about this person who's got a solution to my problem.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you actually brought that up, because that's especially, a lot of clients that I had, even for our consultant agency, about with online marketing, was they wouldn't even define their target audience. They wouldn't even know who it was. And it was exactly that. It was just so broad, which they're just going to spend so much time and wasted energy, and it's just not actually beneficial in any way. So I love that you set that up. And even your key messages, I think it's brilliant, because that is where you have to start. You have to be clear. And if you're not clear, well, then how would a client or a customer be clear on where you're actually leading them? So that's great.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make is, like, we're all like, and I know, like, I was sitting at home after losing my job in a redundancy going, oh, what am I going to do? And at the time, our, Queensland state government had just wiped out 12,000 public service jobs, and 600 of those were comms people just like me. I was feeling vulnerable and distraught, and, like, I was, 43 years old, and I'm thinking, there's no way that anybody's going to take me on in this environment. And I just started my business, and I can tell you the first year of my business was really, really messy, because I kind of forgot all the things that I used to do in corporate, which was to plan. You don't work for a big organization and just go, oh, I'll just give this a crack and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what leads me to my next question is, would you recommend getting a PR expert to help us or educate us on the opportunities out there, like yourself? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you guys actually do one-on-one coaching, and you have different consultation services as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I started my business very much in the space of teaching people how to do it themselves. And what I found was maybe 1% of the people who came through those programs actually went and did anything, because by the time you have, just you're delivering your client work, you're sorting out your finances, you're doing all your admin and all your other marketing, it doesn't leave a lot of time and space to be able to implement a PR strategy. So what happens when you feel a bit overwhelmed? You just don't do it at all. So people were not doing what they needed to do. So we do recommend that you get someone to help you, even if it is to create the strategy and set out some steps so that on a weekly basis exactly what you have to do. And it just makes it a whole lot easier. But like what we really like doing as well is working in collaboration with people. So we might design the strategy for you, but we will coach you through the process of actually implementing that strategy. So once a month you can ring and have a chat to us and say, all right, where are you at? What have you done? What are you struggling with? And we can help, shine the torch to make it a little bit easier.
Definitely. And that's great. I think that's phenomenal to have that connection, just knowing that you can call someone, because I think that's sometimes half the battle, when, especially as an entrepreneur or mompreneur, if you're starting out your own business, you sometimes feel alone. And so it's nice to have that mentor, that coach that's already gone through it and there's to support you. Which is why I just asked to clarify. I know you've already touched a little bit on it, but can you just iterate why PR is so important? So if I was starting out a business, would I even want to be spending money to invest in, say, yourselves or an expert to help me to plan a strategy? But why is that crucial for my own business lifespan, really?
Well, there is so much noise out there, isn't there? Like you think of,
Yes.
Like how many PR people out there, how many accountants are out there, how many, people creating great products and services. And a lot of people aren't using PR as a strategy to do that. And by particularly using the media or, contributing to guest blogs or being interviewed on podcast programs, you're effectively developing third-party credibility. And the really cool thing about PR is that it's earned media. You don't pay for it. It's earned because someone went, I actually think that you've got something valuable to say and to share, like you did. You approached me and said, hey, I'd really like to be able to share your knowledge with my audience because I think it'll help them. So obviously my PR is working for me. So it's important because it's about storytelling. And when you do marketing, so I'll take this back a bit. So the difference between marketing and advertising and PR is advertising is something that you pay for. So when you watch TV and an ad comes on, that organisation is paid to have it there, and you watch it with a little bit of cynicism and a little bit of skepticism, because you're like going, they're paying to say all of these good things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do PR, you don't pay for it. You, like I just said, it's earned media. Someone has seen value in what you're saying or what you're teaching, or what you have to deliver, and they are prepared to back themselves and go, you know what, I found this person, you need to listen to them because of this, this and this.
Mm-hmm.
You think about when you go to a restaurant because your friend said, hey, I think you should go to this restaurant. We went there and it was really awesome. PR is the ultimate word of mouth, absolute ultimate. And you can use it, so not everybody's ready to approach the media. And that's why Facebook and Instagram, particularly, we use Facebook a lot. Facebook groups is that we post into groups quite often. We provide useful, helpful information. We give lots of free tips. We connect and we communicate with the people on there. And we're regularly referred to by people who've done business with us because we've earned their trust, and that's what PR is.
Absolutely. I think that's a great breakdown, the difference between them. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Annette. So going into step 2, which is attacking, because just like in the game of Risk, we can feel like we're getting attacked from all angles. And unfortunately, this can happen in the real world as well. And how do you handle negative PR? Or is the saying true, no PR is bad PR?
Well, yeah, see, I would disagree with that. Bad PR is bad PR. And, you work really hard to build your reputation up and build your credibility up, that if you get negative PR, it's really hard to fight back from that. You think of, we tell our kids to be really careful on social media because everything you post on there stays on there. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with us as business people, is that, if we make a stupid, sexist, racist, whatever comment in our personal profile, unless your security settings are really tight, that's public knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that reflects on you. So, we have to be really careful. Like I said before, PR is everything you say and you do. It doesn't even have to have anything to do with your business. So if you do get negative PR, and let's face it, there's some pretty nasty people out there. We call them trolls. And just like in the Billy Goat Scruff, and they're sitting underneath the bridge, they just want to make your life miserable. So sometimes you get negative PR and haven't actually even done anything wrong. Mm-hmm. So the best way to deal with it is to plan. So think about all of the scenarios that could possibly happen in your business. Your product doesn't get there, or you've missed a deadline, or you've had a disagreement with a client for whatever reason, and sit down and go, worst case scenario, what's the worst thing can happen here? And plan your response then, while you're calm and in control and you're not all flustered, because, who likes someone saying something awful about them? We don't. It makes you feel sick in the stomach. So if you plan in advance when that happens to you, you've already got a process in place on how you're going to deal with that situation. So let's say you get a negative review on your Facebook page or a negative comment on your Instagram page. And the one thing I say is don't engage. Don't go backwards and forwards because it looks really childish. Mm-hmm. Is acknowledge the person's complaint and say, we will do everything we can to resolve this, and then take it offline because it shouldn't be public. And sometimes what you can do is if you put yourself in the position of feel, felt, found, like how would you feel if that happened to you? How would you feel if someone said they'd deliver something within a week and it took them 3 weeks to get it to you? I mean, you'd be pretty annoyed as well. So if you can bring empathy and compassion into how you deal with negativity, then a lot of the time people will retract their comments, unless, of course, they're a troll and you can't do anything about them. So if they're just being nasty for the sake of being nasty, delete them.
Yeah.
and block them. You have that power, because they don't have to stay there. So, yeah, we'll go back to any bad PR is bad PR.
Yeah, and I like that you said that, and I think just because that saying has come out in so many different movies, like even The Wolf of Wall Street, for example. But yeah, no, I love that you iterated that, because yeah, it is. And it goes into my next question, actually, because what mental strategies have you endured to overcome the mental and psychological criticism that we may actually put on ourselves when we get negative PR? So even if that comment or feedback wasn't as bad, but we kind of actually can downward spiral ourselves and play that victim kind of feeling on ourselves. And I feel sometimes that can be actually more damaging than the actual negative PR in the first place. Would you have any insights to give our listeners who are brand new to PR, to the brand, like the PR game, of how to take on board negative feedback for their own mental health?
Well, the thing that I do the most, particularly when it comes to my profile and my persona online, is I check in with myself. Why has that triggered me? Because if I know that I did everything within my power to do the best job possible, then there's some other reason that I'm getting upset by the comment. Because if I'm like going, well, I haven't actually done anything wrong, this person's just being nasty, then it starts and ends with me. And I know that sounds a bit fluffy and airy fairy, but like I've learnt this over many, many years, that what people think of me has nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. It's actually not my problem. I've had luckily people who've chosen to deal with it in an adult way, who don't like me, who have said horrible things to me via private communication. And as I talk, I can think of one a couple of years ago that accused me of being one of the worst business people in Brisbane with no integrity. And I went, oh my God, like I was crushed. Mm-hmm. Like I was crying out the back of my house, because I thought, how can one person feel this way? And I put it aside, because one, that was her opinion, and she didn't know the full story. So she was coming from another perspective, from someone else who said someone else. And what do we say when we're talking about the truth? There's three sides to the truth. There's your truth, my truth, and what's in the middle. And no one will ever know that. Mm-hmm. And I just make sure I'm surrounded by really good people that I can actually check in with and say, hey, can you read this and tell me if you think that there's any truth in it, and how I can improve to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because most of the time, if people are making a valid criticism of you, there's some truth to it. Mm-hmm. Like, and I look back at this person who questioned my integrity, and I went, well, actually, you know what? I did let that person down. So obviously it's triggered something in me, because deep down in the dark recesses of my brain, I've gone, you know what? I stuffed up, and I didn't actually own it at the time. So I'm going to own it now.
Good on you. And you know what? And I love that you said that, because it actually, it goes into my next question. This next question is kind of taking away a little bit from PR and a little bit away from business, and actually now focusing on a little bit more family, but still about attacking. So it's still in regards for that. And honestly, I know this question can actually unravel a whole other discussion. So I hope that it's just a snippet, because especially with you having two boys, but it is a real event, and it is actually happening to our children, and sadly even adults to today, which is bullying. So if this was, say, for example, your child who was in school getting bullied, and that's still negative PR because there's people coming in and attacking them, what advice would you give them, or would it be any different from what you just mentioned about, owning it and your own truth?
No, and I, pardon me, and I can actually speak from this happening recently to my youngest son. He has autism, and so he tends to get bullied and picked on quite a lot at school. And I just say to him, he has this way of dealing with anxiety and frustration, which is very loud and confronting to those around him. So, not condoning the bullying, but saying to him, well, what part are you playing in this? How can you better manage your relationships with these people because and also asking him to empathize and be to be compassionate with the bully, because quite often science has found that people who are bullies have often been bullied and mistreated. And that's not to say that he has to go and love and hug them and be their best friend, but to just also know that they're coming from a place of hurt. And that's a hard concept for a 13, almost 14-year-old to come from. But he's developed a thick skin, and he walks away. Sometimes he doesn't. He gets into trouble for that. But he is strong enough in himself to go, all right, well, this is not nice, but, I shouldn't have really yelled at that person. And that's why they're now picking on me, because I made them feel less. So I think it's the same. Like we should never ever condone bullying. I've seen it firsthand with my own son. But I think we should always come from a place of compassion when we do get negative feedback and do get negative comments or treated badly. That person is in pain as well.
Absolutely. And I love that you have actually even begun teaching your child the different questions and asking and teaching them the empathy and compassion for the other side of it too, because I do agree with that. And bullying is terrible. I got bullied when I was younger, and that's a whole other topic for itself, but I think it's huge for what the parents can do for the children when that's happening, but also for themselves if they're put into a position, because unfortunately it does happen to even adults today, in the workplace or environment as well. So I think that's amazing. So kudos to you, Annette. You're such a rock star.
Thank you.
No problem. So we'll go into step 3, which is called fortifying your position. And that's all about securing and protecting your surroundings. So what do you do on a regular basis or daily basis that secures your territory? And that might be home or business or yourself, etc., whichever habits that you keep yourself aligned and secure.
The most important one, and this is one that I learnt painfully last year, was to look after myself. My business is only 5 years old, and I've built it to a point where I now have someone who works with me. But there's still you still got to work on your business to grow your business. And I just totally forgot all about myself. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't moving enough. I wasn't looking after my personal relationships. I was working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So I was tired. I had no energy. I was cranky. And then, as I said, I said to you that, my relationship hasn't always been awesome. My husband and I went, well, okay, that's it. I've had enough, both of us. And it was a wake-up call, because I thought being in business is awesome, and I love the freedom that it gives me to do what I need to do and help who I want to help. But I've actually jeopardized the most important relationships in my life because I've just been too one-eyed. So now I make sure that I finish work, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So even if the kids, as they're older, don't really need me, I'm still there if they want to come and have a chat, or I go sit and read a book, or I have a cup of tea, or I just take some time to be mindful about being grateful for where I am and who I've got in my life, and for the successes that have manifested because I've changed my focus from hustle. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers in business, is this concept of you've got to hustle. No, you don't. Be yourself. And I think I know my success has come from just being me. So you and I talking now is no different to if you were sitting here talking to me over a cuppa in the afternoon, or we've met someone in a coffee shop, although I haven't sworn as much as I normally do, because I know that there are parents and maybe children listening, so I try to be good that way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's okay. I do have a bit of a potty mouth, so I'm being very good. So that was the most important one, about reinforcing myself, because I can't be good at what I do if I'm exhausted.
Absolutely. And I think it's so key, because I'm a huge personal development junkie, and I absolutely love that. And that's even, for me right now, I'm a mom to be, and it's just looking after myself. And, people have asked me too, how can you start a podcast? How can you start this online marketing business? What can you do? And all this stuff. but I feel like I'm just still focusing on it day by day. I'm still looking after myself. I'm still working out. I still exercised this morning. I'm still stretching, but I'm listening to my body as well, because I don't want to stress myself. And I love that you brought up the word hustle, because I feel like that word has definitely came online in the online world, where it's just been like, you have to hustle to succeed, when you don't. We got to remember what fulfills us and what life is all about. And we have to remember why we're doing what we're doing. So I think that's really important. I love that you actually are focusing on you and making that as your top priority, because that will just ricochet and radiate down into your family life, into your business life, everything in between. So I think that's amazing. And plus, your health is your wealth, right? If you don't have your health, then you won't be able to keep up with all this hustling mentality, right? So I think that's phenomenal.
And what I've noticed, so this all came to a head in September, October last year, is that when I took ownership of my responsibility in terms of my relationship and my health, is that there was a huge shift in energy in the house, because as mothers, and this is not saying that dads aren't the energy as well, but in terms of mothers, is that we carry so much, we do so much. I read an article the other day about the emotional labor that we do, or making sure that, like for you, you're about to have a baby. So I bet in your head, you're constantly going, okay, I've got to go to the hospital, I've got to get the bag, I've got to make sure that this has happened. And your husband is probably blissfully unaware, and then says to you, so have you got that organised? And you look at him and you go like, seriously, dude, like, you want to go, what have you done? But we don't do that. So when we acknowledge that space, and we acknowledge our role in the family life as women, then it ripples out to the rest of the household. So if you're subconsciously, holding a grudge or annoyed at your partner or annoyed at your kids because they're not helping out, because you've then become a martyr to the house, then it's going to translate into your business, and it's going to translate into your friendships and your relationships. So at some stage you have to go, what am I prepared to tolerate? What am I not prepared to tolerate? And then I'm going to use my words, and I'm going to communicate that with the important people in my life, so that they know that, hey, you guys need to do more because I'm carrying this load, or hey, I'm happy to do this. And so it's really important.
It really is. And I love that you said all that, Annette, because, I have to admit, probably if I hadn't been I've been working on letting go and surrendering for probably the last 8 to 10 months. So actually before I found out I was pregnant, which was probably the best thing ever happened to me, because I didn't realize I like control. I honestly really didn't think that. And my man was like, what are you talking about? Of course you love control. And I was like, no, I really never thought of that ever. So it was a big shock. So learning to let go and surrendering was a huge aspect. So for now, honestly, we both have parked the whole pregnancy until April. We, the hospital bag and all that worry, I don't have any of that. I don't, I'm probably just going to pack the bag in April when the time comes when we get back from our trip, because we're heading off to Ireland in a couple weeks. And then literally just have it there and ready to go. But I love that you mentioned the communication, because it's just using your words and teaching our children and our family to use their words as well. So if we're getting annoyed, it's speak it out. And so that's one thing that with my partner and I, that's what we do. So I don't have any grudges or annoyances, because as soon as I have it, he knows. I'm saying it to him straight off the bat, and I'm not holding that in. And vice versa as well, because I'm sure I can piss him off too. So it goes both ways. Yeah, absolutely. But we have that open, and it's not taking it to heart either, and carrying that forward. So I love that you brought that up. I think that's really important. So the next question I have, and this is a bit of a technical space question, okay? Because our world is constantly changing, and we're in an information era. With this, we have to be aware of not to put all of our eggs in one basket, which is what you even started with, which I love. But it's especially for, say, our online business. So, for example, if you have an online merchant account and you're taking payments online, if that merchant account gets shut down, well, there goes your income, right? So you have to have more than one merchant account so that you can still get paid. But for PR, I was just wondering, what are the technical diversifications that you would recommend for someone starting out?
Okay, so like it's just some basic
Mm-hmm.
things. Well, look, I started with PayPal, and so I either have the option of people using PayPal or my bank account to deposit payment in. And I did, and I think one of the dangers is that we try to diversify too much,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that I was getting a little bit overwhelmed, and it's like, oh my God, now here's another thing I have to learn. So I have like two things that I can go. So if a person says, well, I don't have a credit card, can I just deposit into your bank account?
Yeah.
Use my bank account. So I set up a separate bank account. Um, like I think the really basic stuff like Gmail, have it set up on your phone
Mm-hmm.
so that you can, communicate with people on the road. But that comes with a proviso around boundaries and expectations, because I think this is really important as small business people, especially working from home around kids and family, is that we can fall into the trap of answering emails after work hours and then our clients expecting us to be on call. So, like, I've had people go, "Oh, I'll ring you at 7 o'clock tonight," and it's like, "No, sorry, I finish work at 4:30.
Yeah.
Um, we can talk tomorrow." So, Gmail's really cool. Hootsuite is an amazing tool to schedule your social media content, because like people think, oh my God, I've got to spend hours. You might have to spend like an hour or two a month just scheduling all your content, but then it's done and you can set and forget. um, Google Calendars is awesome because it all links up with Gmail, and it means that you can send out invitations and have that pop up on your phone, go like it did this morning.
Yes.
Interview with Amber at it came up at 10:15, so I knew that I had time to go to the toilet, get a cup of tea, organise the kid who's homeschooling next to me, and make sure that I was organised.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I actually think the most important tool is the people around you. Is having people that you can vent to, having a mentor that you can get guidance from, and having a group of people that you can have as your cheerleaders, because all of this other stuff is just stuff, and you'll find the right thing to work for your business. Because like there's things like Asana, um, there's things like, oh goodness, my brain just went blank, but project management tools that you can use, Slack, different ways to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. I feel like there is so much out there. And that's why even just breaking it down to small phases, like how you start off with planning. So right now, these are the essentials. This will operate the business. And then this next month, this is where we're going. So then we can bring in this tool, and you don't have to do it all at once. It can just be a strategic planning session and bringing tools in. Because, yeah, it can get overwhelming and exhausting, and it can hit the bank quite quickly as well, especially for the paid softwares or programs or tools that you might need or think that you need. So
Yeah,
it relates to that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like in terms of a strategy, I mean, like I use Asana with my clients, so I think it's an awesome tool because I can connect it to Gmail, and it's got a whole lot of add-ins that I can use. I can connect it to Xero and all of those type of things. I mean, like even saying that, I only just started using Xero last year to do my invoices. Before that, I was using Word documents.
Yep.
I just used what I had because I didn't have a lot of money. And all of these things that we're talking about cost money.
Mm-hmm.
It all adds up. So, $20 here for this, $20 here for that. And by the end of the month, it's like $200 worth of apps and programs that you're using that you're probably not using well because you don't have time to learn how to use them all.
That's right.
But from my perspective, Asana's been fantastic for setting out my strategy because I can, set it out in columns of strategy month by month by month. And under each of those, I can set out each of my actions for the month, and it pops up in my calendar.
Yeah.
So it might say for February, I need to write an article for Flying Solo, or I need to organise an interview with Amber, or I need to do whatever. And then it just reminds me. And I think that's really important too, is that you get really good at your calendar, because, you know, people don't like to be kept waiting.
No, definitely not. And we have to, like you said, but even beforehand. But it's that compassion and the empathy, but it's also respecting other people's times. And, it's all we have in this world is time, and we have to value that. So we have to appreciate and respect others as well. So
yes.
That's fantastic. So we've gone through the 3 steps. Now, the next thing is just kind of pieces of the game of Risk. And one of the pieces is the sets of armies. So just like in the game, we have 6 complete sets of armies, which each contain 3 different types. Linking this with PR, there's multiple communication avenues. What would be your top 3 communication types?
In terms of tools that I use?
Yeah, or, and maybe this, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you don't call them as avenues or types, but, social media as a type, or blogging, or grants, different avenues that way. Would that be the same way?
Yeah, communication channels or communication platforms, ways to, that's very corporate-y, but just ways that we can get our information out to people. Mm-hmm. So for me, my top 3 are social media, specifically Facebook. That's where my target audience is. So I did a lot of work right back at the beginning of my business on who I wanted my target audience to be. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is every time I sway away from that, my target audience is women in business, typically aged, 40-ish. They've come from corporate, they've got kids, they've got a product or services that they've created. They're in about their 2nd year of business. And when I work with them, we get really, really good results. But whenever I sway outside of that and I work with typically middle-aged men, it is disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. I'll go into that another day with you, but I was thinking about it this morning and I went, every time this has gone wrong, I've worked with men. And that's not man bashing. It's just that we think differently. Mm-hmm. So Facebook groups as a subcategory to that. If you go find 2 or 3 really good engaged Facebook groups and become a part of that community, become somebody who can be relied upon for great information and support and encouragement, then you're going to find that you're going to pick up more work that way, because then people like you and they know you and they want to do business with you. Awards are a really important tool in regards to PR, because it's like the ultimate in third-party credibility. Because when you win an award, not only does your audience go, oh my God, that's amazing, but you can get media coverage around that. So it's like a double, triple whammy of impact that you can get. And you can enter awards at any stage of business, from startup all the way through to well-established, for customer service, for innovation, for marketing campaigns you've done, you name it. There's so many different types of awards out there. And then the third communication channel, can I do 4?
You sure can. Go ahead.
Okay, so the third one would be blogging, so content creation. So at the end of the day, you have no control over Facebook, you have no control over Instagram, you have no control over all of these other platforms that are owned by someone else. But if you own a domain name, and unless, of course, Terminator comes back and Skynet falls, then you own that for as long as you pay for your web hosting. So you should be creating content on there that is SEO, got your keywords nailed, that you're doing all the metadata, meta linking, or whatever it is that they call it in the back end. And and making sure that you do that regularly and that you can drive people back to your website. So again, that's your shop front. People will go there to check you out. They want to see if you know what you know, that you didn't just make it up in the bath last night, that you've actually got some runs on the board. Mm-hmm. So content is really, really helpful for doing that. And then you can repurpose that for all types of other things to go back into your other communication channels like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and any other platform where your customers are hanging out. And then the last one is media. And like in Australia, there's something like, 10,000 different types of media outlets covering a whole range of topics. So I suggest to people what they do is they go find 10 media outlets that they'd like to be featured in, whether it's radio, TV, magazines, online publications, and start building a relationship with those journalists or those writers. Start delivering some really great content that you know will be of interest to their target audience, because they're in the business of informing their audience, which is hopefully the same audience that you have. And out of those four things, you can create a really good, strong strategy.
Absolutely. And that's, thank you so much. And I think the big keywords that I've been hearing is also just leveraging and repurposing all of that. So all four of them, each of them have their own subsections and their own strategy, of course. But even inside them, they all leverage and repurpose to one another. And they all help strengthen your PR and getting your message out there.
Yes, absolutely. I always say to people, look, start with 4 blogs a month. So put aside, 2 or 3 hours once a month, just come up with 4 ideas, 4 story ideas. And it's, what are the problems that you solve? You can write articles about that. Or what are some of the things that people should know about what you do, but they don't? What are some of your observations of the world? Do a case study of someone that you've worked with. Write those 4 blogs, and then you can repurpose each of those blogs into up to, so by doing 4 blogs, you can repurpose into up to 40 pieces of other content.
That's amazing.
And I tell you, I forgot to mention one of my most favorite tools, which is Canva, Canva.com.
Love Canva.
Oh my God, it's the best thing ever. So what I do with clients' blogs is I just go through them and I pull out key points, find a nice picture that goes with their brand and with their message, and then, put 1 or 2 words on there with their logo, and then, cut and paste sections of their media release or their blog and post that into social media. You've already created the content.
And it's amazing. And it's just those little things. It's those little quotes that might said in your blog article. But I love that and Canva's free. You don't have to pay for the pro to do all that as well. You don't have to upgrade. So it's a phenomenal tool. Awesome.
It's the best tool. I wish I had thought of it.
Don't we all? Once we start using the tools that really help us, you're like, oh, I wish I could have done that myself. So this is at the end, okay? So we're doing a little reflection. You've won the battle this time. Now, why I say this time is because there's always going to be a battle. And it's not a negative thing. It's just if it's not in work life, it may be in relationships or with the children or in your own health. But even if all battles have been won and everything is working in beautiful harmony for now, something can occur and disrupt our entire territory. So there's so many aspects of life that we cannot control. And that's why we have to learn to let go, enjoy every single day, and not sweat the small stuff. So to take things one bite-sized chunk at a time, and like you said, dropping the breadcrumbs, which I love that analogy. So even when we lose battles, we really truly don't lose unless, of course, we don't pick ourselves back up. But within loss, there's always a gain, and it's just how we choose to look at it. So Annette, looking back throughout your entire life of battles, what advice can you give our listeners, especially those who are learning the art of integration with business, health, and family?
I think my biggest lesson has been, and I'll repeat myself, is to look after myself. Is if I'm not focusing on my well-being and my health, everything else falls apart. And it may not be a catastrophic falling apart, but it'll just be, like little bits shedding off. And when you work from home and you have a home business or you work for yourself in and around family, is that, your house is not going to be happy if mum or dad aren't happy. So as important as it is to earn an income, it's also important to stop and look after yourself. And that means eating lunch. Don't work all the way through. Go to the toilet when you need to go to the toilet. Because how often do we hang on and go, oh, I'll go soon. And by then you're just like, oh my God, I think I've broken something. And I think, and I was thinking about this the other day, stop giving yourself such a hard time and stop giving other people a hard time, because we're all just, little beings on this big ball of, water and mass, trying to do our best, trying to get ahead, trying to be the best person that we can be. And we really are picking at the small stuff. As long as we communicate and we connect with each other and we're honest, not unfailingly honest, like my young fellow with autism who sometimes says things and you go, you really shouldn't say that to people, mate. That's a bit too honest.
Aw.
But he's very sweet. Bless him.
I bet, yeah.
But, we give people a break, and thereby we give ourselves a break because, expectations aren't that high. And I found actually being in small business to be the most demanding on my psyche and on my emotional health than working for another boss because, like how people go, oh, I don't work for anyone anymore. Yeah, you do. You work for all the clients that you have and they have expectations of you.
That's it.
So, if you can manage those expectations right from the start with your clients and with your family and with those who are in your life, you'll be a lot happy camper.
I love it. That's a great reiteration. Thank you so much. The final 2 points is one thing is you got to have fun. So this is just a one-word little game. So for you to share your wisdom with us, I'm going to say one word, and I would like you to say the first word that comes to your mind when you hear it.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? Coffee.
Oh, crazy. I go crazy on coffee.
Oh, do you? Okay, so you're a tea drinker or neither?
Yep.
Tea?
Tea
Okay.
drinker.
So what's tea then mean to you?
Relaxing.
Perfect. Meetups?
Time consuming.
Friendship?
Important.
Fun?
Essential.
Cocktails?
I love them.
Books?
I absorb and devour them.
Mentors?
Crucial to success.
Trees?
Good to hug.
Meditation?
I should do more.
Marketing?
Vital to your success.
Grandkids?
Oh, I hope a long way off.
Legacy?
Everything I do.
Teamwork?
Really important.
Systems?
Oh, without them, you're going to fall flat on your face.
Commitment?
It's not a dirty word.
Education?
Very important to grow your mind.
Persistence?
That's my middle name.
Choices?
You've always got choices.
Retirement?
50.
And dreams?
Oh, gosh, so many words came to my head just then. Oh, have them and hang on to them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Annette. It was amazing to have you on the show today. I'm sure our listeners are wondering is how the heck can they get in touch with you, and also how can they work with you?
Sure. Well, the best way to get in touch with me is through email, and that's hello@publicitygenie.com. And I'm just going to give that one because one of my things is there's so many ways to contact people and you tend to get overwhelmed. So if you want to contact me, do that and we can organise a time to talk and catch up. And if they want to work with me, let's start with email so we can have a chat.
Perfect. And I'll add that into the show notes. So I'll put that in there too. So thank you so much, Annette. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time out to have this interview with us today. So thank you so much for being on the show.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Well, thank you so much, listeners. That's the end of our show for this week. Next week, we'll have another one coming to you just as every Monday. And we are now on iTunes and Podbean as well as YouTube. And we will have some other platforms coming shortly to you too. So make sure you subscribe and follow. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye.